Now, this album did not do as well as some of the Earth, Wind and Fire albums from the 70s. This is called Faces. And it came out in 1980. It's a double album. And I hit on it called Let Me Talk. And a lot of other songs I really personally like, such as Pride. Pride is an amazing, very Afrocentric, funk number. I think really underrated. There's a lot of ballad kind of songs on this album. I think they released probably all their output from 1980 here. That's when this album came out. But there was a recession going on. And Al McKay, the guitarist, left shortly after this album was released. So it's probably kind of a sad event for them. That's the back of it. Now, if you get the vinyl, or perhaps new editions, there are lyrics. These pictures right here on the vinyl are presented in color. And probably on the new CD edition here, but this is an older CD. As I talk about often with people music, this is probably the defining moment of it from 1980. This album is a very interesting place. Philip Bailey describes this later as when the record company were actually petitioning them very strongly to get hits. And so they had a song called Let's Groove, which might have been from the mid-70s, and put it on this album, which is called I Am, from 1981. And a lot of people, who are really heavy musician fans don't care much for Let's Groove. They think that it's overly commercial. But that's not what's on the rest of this album. There's the back of it. I love this album's artwork. This is not the newly remastered edition. It's the original one from the late 80s, I believe. And there are songs on here, very intense rocking funk numbers, very intense, like Lady Sun, Evolution Orange, You Are a Winner. This is where Roland Bautista became involved with the band. You remember him from Last Days in Time again. And these songs were very, very, very heavily message-oriented. Very different from the big hits. So they hadn't really lost their sound. They'd actually gained it back a lot on this album, but not commercially. The songs I like best, like Evolution Orange, amazing. Very hard to understand, quasi-metaphysical lyrics. And These Changing Times, which is a heavy rocker at the end of the album, which is more direct, were not hits. So the album's strength is on the non-hit material on this. But again, I highly recommend this. If you don't care for Let's Groove, there's a lot that goes beyond that on this. This album was not promoted very well by Columbia from 1983, called Powerlight. And it has some excellent songs on here, such as Fall in Love with Me, Spread Your Love, another one called Freedom of Choice, which is great because it's very much in the league of boogie funk, like Kashif or D-Train, very, very naked production, very slick. Very much in tune with what was happening with Prince, too. And they're singing about very heavy political issues. Can You Dig the Prime Interest Rates? Freedom of Choice is a fantastic song from this album. And Larry Dunn actually does a lot of production on this, believe it or not. A lot of keyboards. It's a very up-tempo album. Very hard funk, very hard boogie dance material. Only had one hit really with Fall in Love with Me, but even that's a good song. Very underrated. Should have been huge. I feel bad that the band had so many issues at this point. And they were kind of starting to break up the original lineup when this album came out. Now, this album is very controversial, and it is sort of a grail to get on CD, this original version from the late 80s. A lot of times, even on Amazon.com, you do not find a marker for this, because it is very, very hard to find. There's a Japanese issue that's also hard to find, too. And this is called Electric Universe. It came out later in 1983. They originally produced this album. Maurice White originally produced it with the Phoenix Horns, who were the Earth, Wind, and Fire horn section. But somehow, in trying to get it rushed out, they had a lot of new producers on this album. People like, I believe Martin Page was involved in this. And when they put it out, actually, the album actually ended up having no horns. This is, again, very boogie funk inspired. But without the horns, it just didn't sound like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and the material was a little bit uneven. Actually, the hit Magnetic is not one of my favorite songs by them. My favorite here is Moonwalk. Again, no horns, but there's a line on there where Maurice White sings, "Computers are on the rise and feelings are synthesized. Makes it hard to feel, but the touch of your love is real." What a wonderful lyric. Could even apply today. And if you open up this album, this is really a grail. You're not going to find this edition of this album anywhere easily. It's very tough to find. There's a picture in here of the band members. They're starting to look a little bit more like members of the time, or Prince's Revolution. You know, the Jerry curls are coming in, the afros are going out. There's Larry, his kind of Michael Jackson haircut. After this album, the band split up. And when they came back, Larry Dunn and a lot of the original members were gone. So this is the end of the classic Earth, Wind & Fire album. I think very underrated. There's some material on here that's so-so, but really deserves more attention than it got. And Earth, Wind & Fire are a very important funk band for another reason, because they had a DVD documentary that came out on them. The Ohio Players, the Commodores, a lot of bands like that were popular funk bands did not get this privilege. But Earth, Wind & Fire, by virtue of all their hits, did. And this is really an amazing accomplishment, and I'm so happy to have this. So, there we have it. The Shining Star documentary, still in print, you should get it. And Earth, Wind & Fire's first 12 CDs featuring Larry Dunn. So on Larry Dunn's birthday, I would like to say happy birthday to you, and keep the music coming. You've had the Larry Dunn Orchestra, who you really should check out, all of you out there in listening land. And, you know, tune on some Earth, Wind & Fire today. Look up some of the songs I recommended here on YouTube or wherever you happen to be, or, you know, other places. Just check them out. They're a worthwhile band, you know. Don't just go for the hits with them. Go for the albums. They are an album act. There's a lot of great stuff you're going to find there, even if you just like pop music. Earth, Wind & Fire are a great band, and Larry Dunn helped a lot more than people think in their musical development. Happy birthday, Larry Dunn. The elements are still with you.